All right. Welcome, listeners. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Unsecurity Podcast. This is episode 125, and the date is March 30th, the last day of March in 2021. And here with me again, 2 weeks in a row, is Mr. Brad Nye. How are you, Brad?
Good. Yeah. I had a bit of a scare on Friday. I was like, not sure what was going to happen, but everything turned out good.
Yeah.
So it was a rough weekend, but
Good.
recovered.
I'm glad you're back, and I'm glad you got some good news. I'm hoping that you're getting a streak of good news now, and you can use it.
Yeah, it was crazy. Like, I won't go into details, but there was probably 6 or 7 separate, like, are you kidding me type of things that were all
Right.
independent, and over like a 4 or 5 week period. It was just like, good Lord. So,
Right. Well,
I'm back. Took a week
back
off, recovered.
Yeah. Now we're, heads down, working our tails off again.
Yeah. That's the downside, is I have to catch up. But
I finally got caught up on email. Man, I think maybe Sunday, from having my week off 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I know. I took the week off. Well, and by taking the week off, I mean, I did all the meetings that I had scheduled that week. Luckily, they were all on Monday and Tuesday, so it wasn't horrible. But yeah, I had I want to say 1,600 emails that week.
Yeah. Well, do you ever get anxiety when you saw an email? Because a lot of times I'll see the emails, I just don't have a chance to respond to them. So then they kind of go down, and then I'll remember a few days later, oh my God, I got to respond to that email. Do you run into that?
Oh, all the time. It's for me, it's always right as I'm laying in bed ready to go to sleep, I'm like, oh crap, I forgot to reply to so-and-so. Well, I'm not getting up and doing it now. And then I forget in the morning. And then I feel bad because I forgot. And 3 days later, I finally remember to do it when I'm in front of the computer.
Right. Well, today I wanted to, so I figured our show would be, we will talk about the 2021 FRSecure CISSP Mentor Program. We're only a couple of weeks away now. This one's pretty exciting, and I think a lot of people may have heard of it. They may not know some of the details about it. They may not know some of the background or the history. They may not know how to get involved, so we'll cover all that stuff today. And then I also wanted to talk about just kind of any current kind of security things that we're working on. I know I personally got an incident response email yesterday. Now, when I'm getting them, it makes me wonder, what the hell is going on?
I know. I was in meetings because I got copied on that, and they were I was in a leadership meeting. I'm not checking my emails. We're discussing important things, and I had two voicemails from him and the email. Yeah. And I got out of it, and you'd already responded, but I was like, oh my gosh, what is going on?
Well, it's not. I appreciate the fact that on this particular incident that, you attend to it right away, and you treat it like you don't, you let the facts take you where they take you, right? So you don't know. On the surface, you may think, oh, it's just, compromised email account or 2 or 60.
Right, yeah.
But,
yeah,
we'll just change passwords and go on with our day. But that's really dangerous because you don't know.
Oh yeah, no, we could go down a rabbit hole of.
Right.
We have the team has put together just a ton of scripts for what you have to run to check the basics after a business email compromise. And most people don't think about that. Like you said, they just change a password and good to go. Well, did you reset all the sessions? Did you do this? Did you do that? Did you check for these things? And
where else could that password potentially lead somebody into your environment? I know on this particular one, yesterday you had email that was only secured by, username and password, but you also had VPN the same way, right? And attackers aren't stupid.
No,
Uh,
I mean, it's all publicly accessible, right? If
right.
they get a username and password, they're gonna now check what else can they get to for that company
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
get to get in, so.
Yeah. And you don't want to freak out either, so people that, are listening haven't been through an incident before, or maybe you have, and, maybe you got burned. It's, you let the evidence take you where it takes you, right?
Mhm.
Use logic, think things through, engage an incident response team that, has been there before that. And one of the things that's really cool that I was talking with Oscar about, I think maybe last week, is you talk about these scripts. He's automated. That team has automated the
Oh my God,
entire, initial evidence gathering.
it's, I mean, you think back to kind of, gosh, well, Tom just had his second anniversary. So
Yeah,
it's, 2 years, and where we've gone in those 2 years is, it's amazing to think about, like, how far that team has come. I mean, they went from, January, February of 2019, where I was, basically the only one doing anything, to they've got what, 8 people on the team, and
right.
just not 9. I don't even know. I can't keep track.
Well, they're hiring and they're continue to add to it. And the thing that I'm most impressed with is just I would stack this team up against anybody. I
Oh,
mean,
absolutely. Well, we had one for sure, like, that the insurance said, nope, you got to go with this other company. The other company only did the one thing on, like, the exchange server. That was it for, the big, and they came back and said, no, we don't think they did a good job. They just basically said, we fixed it, you're good. And they came back and were like, yeah, we want to
yeah.
engage with you guys to make sure.
Well, that's interesting for people to hear too, because just because your insurance company, recommends that you go with this incident response team, and us included, right? No matter who, uh, don't just take it at face value, right? I mean, if your gut is telling you they didn't do a thorough enough job, ask somebody. Ask somebody you trust. Don't ask somebody who's trying to take your money. And another thing about that is, just because an incident response company is on an insurance panel doesn't mean they're good,
Oh, good Lord, no.
right?
I
Because
mean,
people need to realize what it takes to get on that panel. It's often who what strings you pulled, and
well, and the insurance
the
companies,
money thing.
yeah, they're looking for the lowest, uh, you know, lowest price. What are they gonna?
Yeah, and that's definitely one of the things. And maybe we'll get into that. Maybe we'll have Oscar on, and we'll talk about what's broken in the cyber insurance industry from an incident responder's perspective, right? None of us are insurance experts. I can't tell you what your policy should say and shouldn't say, but I do know you should read your damn policy. And I do know that if stuff hits the fan, that you're going to be in good hands, right? You need to have that assurance.
Yeah, yeah, and I think one of the best ways that we can tell that that team, is, well, just in general, is doing well is lawyers seem to like us, which you never really. It's not. It's kind of like a double-edged sword, but
Yeah, right.
at the same time, that they're super picky and they usually have really good questions. So if you're making the lawyers happy, that's probably a
Right.
decent sign of you know what you're doing and can speak to you know the quote unquote normal people.
Well, right. And as a business owner, the lawyer better understand and better be comfortable with my case, because they're the ones who are going to have to defend it should
Mm.
it come to that. You know what I mean? So the fact that lawyers are pleased with the work we do, uh, it just makes everybody happier.
Yeah.
All right. So the CISSP Mentor Program, for people who don't know, this is free. And like free as in free, like there's no strings attached kind of free, that nobody, it's free.
Yeah.
We started this in 2010. this free CISSP training. And really what it's meant to do is train you, teach you everything you need to know to pass that exam, and then teach you some security life skills along the way, and teach you what you can forget about after you pass the exam, like things that just aren't practical.
Yeah, I think, well, that's exactly the word I was going to use. It's practical training, right? It doesn't mean you go through this and you're going to pass, like you don't have to do any other work. You still have to do the studying and all that. But I think my goal in it is, like you just said, is what do you need to focus on? What are the areas? What are the tips and tricks? You know, what should you be memorizing versus, you know, just going through a book and reading off of it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Because, you know, there's street smarts and there's book smarts, right? I mean, you can get through the CISSP exam with book smarts and not know the first thing about how to actually run a security program or do a vulnerability scan or, you know, figure a network or a firewall. But it's the street smarts, right? It's that combination. I can't be book dumb and street smart, and I can't be the other way either. It's kind of this mixture.
Well, I mean, there's definitely things that the only time I ever think about them are when it comes up in the class.
Right.
You know, it's like, oh yeah, that's right. I haven't used that in ever. But you know, it's important to know and have that history.
Yeah, for sure, man. So we started in 2010 with 6 students. Last year, I think we had 2,400 some odd students.
Yeah, 2,300, 2,400, somewhere right in that range.
So it was really cool. It's really been really cool that over the last 10 years, it's grown to that. And then this year, we've got yesterday you sent me a message. We have over 5,300 students.
Yeah. I mean, I'm excited. That's fantastic, but holy crap. That's a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, it is a lot of people, and it's so cool to because the reason why we started this thing way back when, I guess it was just me, was our mission, right? Our mission is to fix the broken industry. Our mission is not to rake people over the coals. You know, these are skills nowadays that they should be considered life skills.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we're in the 21st century now.
We've absolutely had, I mean, you know, some of the people, but we've had CIOs and COOs that have gone through it, have no intention, will never take the exam. Well, I mean, even Renee, right?
Yeah.
She might take it at some point, but it just makes them so much better at their job just to understand it. And I think the biggest thing people miss is, even if you're not going to take it, it changes how you think.
Right.
It changes how you look at things, and that's a good thing.
You know, absolutely, man. And because I mean, okay, so you bring up a really good point. So I'm gonna get to that. You know, like who takes this thing? Who goes through the mentor program? But you know, going back real quick, that we started in 2010 with 6 students. It's grown every year. Last year, you know, the pandemic hit kind of at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, because we teach this in April every year, and so it was weird having this quick transition to going all online.
Yeah, like 2 weeks before we were supposed to start.
Yeah, right. And this year it's all online. And so, you know, the part that's really kind of, I don't know, just amazing to me is how many people we've touched and helped. You know what I mean?
And I don't know about you, I'm sure you get it too, but it still blows my mind, the LinkedIn invites from all over the world that are like, hey, I really appreciate you doing this. You know, it really helped me. Can we connect? And it's like, I mean, literally all over the world. Like, every time, you know, it's like, it's crazy.
It is crazy, and it feels good because, I mean, this is why we exist, right? We're mission before money. We make money, right? Security Studio, FRSecure will make money, but focus on the mission, make money. Focus on the money, you won't make the mission. So it's kind of just getting these priorities straight.
Yeah. Well, and I think I've said it before. For me, it's giving back and being that resource that I didn't have when I was kind of coming up, and it would have been incredibly helpful. So if
Yeah,
I can help someone else, why wouldn't I?
absolutely. 100%. So now the people that typically, because we've seen hundreds, thousands of people come through the program, some of them are coming with the intention of taking the exam, right? This is their, I just saw a message yesterday in the community group about, this year's class, that they've already got their exam scheduled. It's for July. So this
Wow.
is their kind of like, I'm studying for the exam. I want to pass the exam. Well, that's one approach. And those people, and that's the thing about everybody, truly everybody, kids, or even, I don't know how much kids will want to sit through all this, but high school students, college students,
I've had multiple
everybody.
that I've gone and done presentations at the schools around here, high schools, ask and say, hey, would this be a good thing to recommend to my kids, to the students? Yeah, and some of it's going to be way over their head. That's
Right.
okay. Get them thinking. If they can get into it and it interests them, that's fantastic. Even if they only understand 25% of it, get them interested in it.
Well, that's the thing too about learning, right? Very rarely do you hear something the first time and you just immediately you master it.
Right.
Right. Usually the first time you hear something, it's like, what the hell is that? I've never heard of this before. Doesn't make any sense. But then you hear it again, maybe a year later, maybe a week later, and you're like, oh, I've heard that before. Where the hell did I hear that?
Right.
And then you make that connection. Well, that's how learning works, by the way. You start making connections, logical connections in your brain. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, I remember hearing about that. Where did I hear about that? Oh, that CISSP Mentor Program. Okay. Well, now you made a connection, right? And then you'll hear about it again, because this stuff isn't going away, by the way. Security's here to stay, just
Right.
like the internet is here to stay.
It's only going to become more prevalent.
Exactly. And the more you hear those things, the more you start putting these connections together. Now, the cool thing about, which means you start to learn it and master it, the really cool thing about the CISSP that I've always liked, it won't make you a master of anything, but it makes you kind of the jack of everything, right? You can put things into context.
Mm-hmm.
And so now when you hear something again a year from now, you're like, oh yeah, I remember that. That was part of this thing. Oh, and that leads to these other things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you can put it into just so many different examples, but I think just encryption, right? A lot of people are like, what? Well, you start looking at what the algorithms are, and then how do those get implemented, and what are SSL certificates, and it just all comes together. You don't necessarily need to know how AES 256 works.
Right.
You just need to know, okay, that's a good, right? From just a high level perspective, what's good, what's not, what should I be looking for?
Right. Well, the thing about security is risk management, which means assess, decide, implement. It's that kind of construct, right? So the people who can make the best risk decisions are the people who can put risk into context.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at an information security program, when you look at all the things that go into play, right? Roles and responsibilities, asset management, training and awareness, policies, procedures, network architecture, application development, on and on and on and on and on. When you can take, oh yeah, that thing fits here. If I make a change here, that'll affect this thing over here. Now you can really understand and appreciate how risk management works.
Right. Well, I don't know about you, but like in personal life with like friends and neighbors and family, when I explain to them what I do, exactly what you just said, risk management, or this is what we do every day, is assess this and make a decision. And suddenly, not even information security, just general things, they're like, what do you think about this? Because
right,
when you think about this stuff all day, all the time, you do tend to look at things from maybe a little bit different perspective, because you do have that bigger context a lot of times. So I get that all the time, like, hey, we're thinking of this, or we got this, what do you, it's like,
well, that's the thing, man. I mean, people will recognize the fact that you are better at putting things into context, right? You take like even, and I'm going to get off on a little bit of a tangent, even think about like COVID, all the stuff going on, right? If you look at any one piece of it, you could either be paralyzed with fear or ignorant, right? I mean, those are kind of the two sides of the spectrum, and everything else is sort of in between. But when you do have this ability to put risk into context, you can put it into context. Like, okay, yes, COVID is a serious thing. No, I will not be, paralyzed by fear, but I also won't act like it doesn't exist, right? You figure that stuff out.
Well,
risk works the same way, right?
Yeah, it's that risk tolerance is really what it comes down to, and weighing pros, cons, risk, benefits, and yeah, absolutely. That's one of the bigger ones that I get asked about is like, what do you think about?
Yeah, they do the same thing with me, right? I think they just pick up on the fact that, wait a second, you know how to put risk into context. I mean, they don't think that, they don't say it, but or consciously, but then they ask you these questions all the time, like, hey, you seem pretty reasonable. What do you think about this? And you're like, well, I can tell you what I think about it, but then, hopefully you'll make your own decision. So those things, and that's one of the things that's cool too about the CISSP Mentor Program is you do talk, the CISSP itself is like the perfect thing to do a mentor program with, because it's so broad. I don't have to dig deep and specialize into any one piece of it, which then opens the door for information security professionals, people who've been in this business for 10, 15 years who want to get the certification. It also opens the door for students. It opens the doors for business leaders. It opens the door for everybody.
Yeah, people. I mean, we talked to her last year during the Women in Security, Victoria. People changing career.
Right.
Like, there is no wrong person for like what's the audience? Yes.
Right. Yeah. Not only do we need you as a practitioner in this industry, because we are allegedly short on talent, but we need you. The thing is that people don't realize is that people are people. They're creatures of habit. You're the same person at work as you are at home. You may act different. You may do certain things different because you've kind of been conditioned that way. But information security skills, they apply at home. At home, you're the CEO. You know what I mean? You're the one making executive decisions, making risk management decisions for you and your family. The thing at work is if I make wrong decisions, or let's say I just drop the ball altogether, we lose some information, we get hacked, whatever. The sad thing about at home is your kids potentially suffer, your wife, husband, significant other.
Which directly impacts your ability to work.
Oh my God, right? So, yeah. So CISSP Mentor Program, it's how many weeks is it? It's about
13 classes. Yeah,
13.
I think it's 13.
All right. It starts April 12th. It's evenings.
Yep.
Usually 2 evenings a week. So we're trying not to, make it so you can't do your other duties.
Right. And I think it's like every 3 classes or so, there's a break after. So we do 3 classes, day off, 3 classes, day off. So it's gives people a chance. I mean, we know it, like there's real life. You've got family, you've got work responsibilities. Maybe you're going to fall behind. So give people a chance to stay, or to catch up, I guess. And
what year did you start? What year did you start helping?
This will be in 2017. So I did 17, 18, 19, 20. Yeah, this will be my, oh my God.
5th year. It's crazy. Because the ones before that, man, I used to, it was like one of those things where you feel like you've been called to do it, but I'm not really enjoying it because of that. It was too much work, man. It was, you have your normal day job, you have family responsibilities, and then you would teach. And so it would be like 7-8 weeks every spring where, I just started to dread it. So the fact that you came along, and then last year, Ryan came along. Yeah. And last year was like, this is easy, man.
Oh my God. Well, And like I mentioned last week, like having the online moderators that
Right.
just like I don't have to worry about that stuff, and I know it'll get taken care of. The questions will be answered, and if something
Right.
comes up, they'll let me know via a back channel that I can actually see,
Yeah.
and not have to try and keep up with. I mean, you moderated some and saw the chat. It's just like I can't. I'm not going to be able to talk and watch
Right.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's cool to see how it's evolved, because I think last year it was really well done. I mean, it was professionally done. We had our technical glitches because I think we had to switch
Well,
things so fast and
I
kind
mean,
of find their
yeah,
technology.
like I said, we had 2 weeks from the start of it, like shut down to, oh crap, we're gonna have to do this all virtual.
Right. Yeah. And so for people, so we start on April 12th. In April 12th, we ease into it, right? It'll be the introduction class. It'll be our introduction to the program and introduction to security and everything. And that's taught by me. Then we'll dig in and get into domain one, the security and risk management. Both of those things will happen the same week. That's a pretty easy week, right? It's not like we're going to slam you with a whole bunch of stuff.
We'll get them hooked and then drop the
Yeah,
hammer.
that's about it too, man. Because the next week it does kind of dig in. Yeah, we get going pretty fast after that. And some people feel overwhelmed. They feel like they're drinking from a fire hose. That's normal and that's okay. You're not supposed to master this the first time you go through it, right?
Oh,
You're not like, oh, I got it, I'm ready for the exam. No, you're
so
going to have to do some study afterwards
oh yeah,
too.
so I mean, personal experience, if it helps people, and where I was living at the time down in Lexington, there just isn't very many CISSPs. I didn't have a lot of support, so I didn't know what to expect, right? So
Mhm.
I read the Sean Harris book cover to cover and filled 2 legal notepads with notes. Then I read Eric Conrad's book. Then I did a ISC squared webinar, and then did the Cybrary free version. And you know, it's not like I mean that's a lot of, and then I can't even tell you how many practice tests I did on CCCure. You know,
Right.
I was at the end leading up to it. I was doing basically a full 250 3 times a week for the last like
Right.
month, just because I was like, I don't know what to expect.
Right.
It's
Yep.
a lot of stuff. You don't take it lightly.
No, but also don't get, overwhelmed. The
Right. Oh, I absolutely over
ev-
prepared.
everybody goes at their own pace. You know what I mean? And so for those people that are taking this to get the exam, we'll give you plenty of advice along the way, and you'll have the support of other students, right? We set up the study group online, where people can share ideas and thoughts and whatever they do. Then you got the other side of the spectrum where I'm just here to learn.
Mhm.
Because there's always some attrition, right? You start with the first class and, just about everybody's there. And then it starts to wane a little bit. We didn't lose a lot last year, I think by percentage, but because as you get through it, people are like, man, this is just more than I can handle. And it's May, because at that point it's probably May and you're like, the weather's nice.
I don't want to sit inside for 2 hours after being.
I'm out. Right. I get
Well,
it.
a big part of why I wanted to do this and volunteered is because I didn't want other people to go through what I did, because like I said, I didn't have those resources to know what should I be doing, how do I know if I'm ready or not. And so I think that's the biggest takeaway, and probably the biggest feedback I've gotten from people is, yeah, the content, I mean, the content is what it is, right? It's not like we're creating something new. It's those practical tips of, here's what to focus on, here's what you need to be understanding, versus just memorize a book.
Right. And for people on it, sorry we got so far in before I even mentioned the link and where you can go to
Oh yeah.
register, because It is April 12th is the date. You can register up until that date and maybe even after, but it's FRSecure.com/CISSP mentor program. And on the bottom of that page, you'll see a little description and the schedule. And, in the middle of the page, you'll see a register now button. You can register there. As for minimal information, really, it's just, how do we stay in contact with you basically so that we can tell you,
Right.
what
How do
we're
we
doing.
listen to the links for the class is really, that's
Right. Well, that's another question we get all the time too, is when will I get the links? Well, you'll get the links for the day's class, the day of the class.
Yep.
Right? Because we're finalizing everything, kind of getting everything, all the bugs worked out and everything. We'll also post those in the study group. So we'll have multiple places where you can find where to get into, because people panic on that. They're like, like 2 days before the class, they're like, where's the link to get into the class? I don't have the link to get into the class. It's like, it's okay. You're going to get it that day.
Well, and now all of them will be on the YouTube channel as well. Right. So if you miss a class, it's not the end of the world. Yeah, it's a little different in that you don't get the opportunity to maybe ask questions in the chat as you go, but everything's there.
Right. Yep. Yeah, for sure. And the books, the books that you'll need. So that's where you'll have some expense, right? You'll have expense in two places. You'll have to, whatever supplemental training stuff you want, meaning books. If you found some practice exams or things that you'd like to purchase, that's going to be on you. And then the other is the exam itself, right? We don't cover that cost. That's expensive as hell. We'd probably go to business.
Yeah, it's like $650, $700, something like that now.
I don't even know what it is, but
at least now it's adaptive, and the most you'll have to do is 150 questions, because you and I were.
I did mine on paper, man. I had to fill out the holes.
Yep, I did. I had a computer exam for CISSP, but it was the 250. But then my CISM was the Scantron filling out the.
Yeah,
that's. But so one of the other things that I think we probably want to talk about, and I've had asked, I can't into the 2 digits, is, well, why are we using the Eric Conrad book from 2015? And then are you going to update anything, because like they're going to be coming out with another version here in June or July.
Mm-hmm.
And what is this going to mean? So, from my perspective, and we've talked through this, I think the Eric Conrad book was for the old, when they had 10 domains versus 8. Mm-hmm. Like the content in those domains changed like less than 1%. It was just rearranging where they fit. Yep. And with the new version coming out, it even says on the ISC² website, hey, it's a, oh gosh, what did they say? Like a lifestyle exam, right? You can't just study it. You have to have practical experience. And again, I keep coming back to that word, but you have to have done this stuff and worked in it. So if you are studying on current material, it shouldn't have an impact if you take the exam on the next version.
Right.
And I can tell you, I studied on the previous version, the 10 domains, and took it on the 8 domains, and I didn't have any problems.
Right.
Nothing in there.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, security is security, right? It just doesn't, it's the same. What's changed is maybe some technologies, maybe some, a few techniques, maybe the names of a few things, but really security is security. Well, the 2015 book is absolutely still 100% applicable to today's test. The future test, what's coming in July, there's hints about what that is, but there is no book for that.
Right.
There is no training for that.
The thing is, what's crazy is they're going to start doing the newer tests before there's even a study guide or a book officially from ISC². You can't even buy a book yet.
Right.
So to me, that indicates it's not going to be a fundamental shift. If they were going to make major changes, I don't know how they could possibly justify making people take a test on the new content without having anything to study.
Right. Yeah, I agree. So that's a good question. We do get that question a lot. Why are you using a book from 2015 when the year is 2021? And the reason why is it's a very well written book. It's tried and true, and it covers everything we need to cover.
Yeah, the content hasn't changed. It's just been moved around.
Yep. The instructors for the exam, I mentioned that I'm one. Brad is also one, and then Ryan Cloutier, who you've heard on this podcast before. He works at Security Studio. So that's kind of cool too, because I think if I was a student, I would get sort of tired of the same instructor, every exam, because you're talking about what, 26, 28 hours of instruction.
Mm-hmm.
So switching it up, getting a different, fresh perspective. We all have different experiences, right? We've got similar stuff, but man, we're different.
Oh yeah, and now, well, you and I have kind of switched which classes we had taught in the past.
Mhm.
So if you go back, you can get all of our different views on these different topics. So I think this year even we'll switch it up. So it's not going to be, well, I'm definitely not doing security models. I'm drawing the line there. That was painful last year.
Let's give it to Ryan.
Yep. I think it probably won't be as bad this time because we're used to it. But I mean, at the time it was like, what am I doing? But yeah, you're going to get different perspectives on the different topics because we do rotate those year to year.
Yeah, for sure. So that's cool. I can't think of anything else. One of the things I've been asked before, and we actually put it on our website, the value of the training, because some people like that. I mean, we had 2,825 students. So the average cost for CISSP training for self-paced online courses, which isn't the same. This is actually a little better than that because it's instructor-led training. But the average cost for online self-paced courses is $2,795.
Wow, I was going to say about 2,500. So yeah, that's higher than.
Yeah,
I know that. I mean, back in 2010, 11, I paid 3,500 for instructor-led training.
right.
Well, my company did, luckily at the time, but.
Well, that's another thing that I really like is the number of people we've been able to help that couldn't afford it.
Mm-hmm.
If you do the 5,300 students at which we've surpassed that. That was yesterday at $2,795. You're talking 14 million.
And you wonder why the financial people are like, well, couldn't we charge like $50?
Nope, we're not charging a dime for this. We never will, as far as as long as I'm around.
And I will be honest, when you say that, and I've talked to people and told them that, and you do get some looks like, what is wrong with you?
It's our mission, man. I mean, we make money in other places, right? Doing other things.
And the reality is we've gotten some phenomenal hires from students who were like, I really like what you're doing. I'd love to work with you.
Yeah, and I guess there is kind of, now that I think about it, there is sort of in a weird kind of way, strings attached, because it does give us a really good reputation, in the industry as a company that generally cares about people, that generally wants to help people.
We're not going to ask anything of any of the students. I think that's the big thing, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
We're not going to sell their information. We're not going to do anything. It's giving back, like you said, and helping others.
Yeah. Oh, another thing I've gotten too is the future of the CISSP Mentor Program. So real quick, what I'm thinking the future is going to be is two things I'd like to figure out is how to get more. We have an organization, not a company, a nonprofit called Virtual Testing out in California. They do some really amazing things there too. It's a nonprofit. Well, they've been sending a bunch of students our way too, which got me thinking, I'm working on another I told you I have ADD, right? We're kind of another thing. It's a nonprofit called the Gray Matter Society. You and I had talked about, before we started the show, just the I think inability or unwillingness for people to think through things critically.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we've got some really big issues and problems in our industry that we need to think through things critically so that we can come up with solutions with no strings attached. No, it's not partisan crap. It's just, how do you solve problems? But that's going to be a nonprofit. I think Kevin right now is in the middle of setting up that 501(c) or whatever you call it.
Very cool.
Yeah, we might move the CISSP Mentor Program into that nonprofit. And the reason being is, so, FRSecure is a for-profit company. Some other companies may not want to partner with us because of, whatever, intimidation, competition, whatever. If we put it in a nonprofit, then we can grab FRSecures all across the country and get them to participate.
Yep.
That's one thing. And I think that will also lead to this perpetual training. I think rather than having, only doing this once a year, why don't we get, experts from all over the industry and teach this thing year round? You and I know the benefit in terms of the blessings we get.
I mean, even if you did it 3 times a year, right? Or once a quarter, which would really be year round because it is that long. But yeah, even if, or heck, geez, just a second one in the fall, because we get asked that all. That's the other big one. When is it going to start? Why do I have to wait till spring? Well, because it's a lot of work. It's just really 3 of us with 3 or 4 or 5 moderators behind the scenes.
Right. Yeah. So I think we can make it, year round and invite other people, to play with us.
Yeah.
I think because this is for the benefit of society. It's not for the benefit of FRSecure or any individual. It's about how do we help people?
Right. Yeah.
And let's not monopolize that.
People just don't, it does, I guess, society or businesses typically, or seem to be, there's always that gotcha, or what's the catch? And, legitimately, we do this because, I'm going to speak for you, because we care, right? You've said it a million times. It's information security isn't about information, or security is about people.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
I said it. I didn't have this kind of resource coming up. Well, I know how tough that was. You're the same way, I'm sure, because you were in it focused on security a little bit earlier than I was even. And yeah, if I can help someone with my experience and make their life easier, and then not only that, make them better at their job, or even if they don't take the program or take the exam or not in security, but it prevents a breach, that means that's less work too, right? For everyone, there's no downside other than giving up our time. But
no, I agree with that, man. And it's in the way the world works, right? These are the basics of security, right? We're not going to teach you how to hack things. I mean, there may be other course. When we move into the nonprofit, we may decide to do other things, right? Teach other specialized courses.
Yeah,
but
I know.
But these are the basics here. And the thing that frustrates me about the basics is technology is going way faster than our ability to secure it. So the gap continues to widen, and we have to do something in order to close this gap. Otherwise, society will fail.
Right. And people going back to the book, and they're like, well, it's 2015 and now you've got next gen firewalls. And look, you know what? I don't care. Do you have port security enabled? Do you know what your rules are? Are you doing ingress and egress traffic filtering? I don't care how you do it. Are you doing those things? Right. It doesn't matter what you're using for those.
Yeah.
Right. No, the fundamentals are going to always be the same.
Yep. Totally. I agree completely. All right, let's get some news. So that's good stuff. Everybody go sign up for the CISSP Mentor Program. Don't just do it just to do it, I guess, though. You really do want to sort of commit. It's going to be April 12th through June 2nd. It's some weeks it'll be 1 class. Some weeks it'll be 2 classes, never more than 2. And classes are 2 hours long. If you miss a class, what's that?
Roughly, some go a little longer.
Yeah, they do, especially some of those. Yeah, really. Oh God, I had a little shudder there. If you miss one, you can always catch it on YouTube. And if you are going to sign up, commit to going through it all. Almost force yourself to, because you'll be better off for it. Even if you're not planning on taking the exam, sit through all of it, right? Because you won't know some of the, you'll find that when we get to domain 7 and 8, we'll be making connections back into domain 1 and 2. And it really makes things, okay, now I got it.
Yep.
So stick with it.
Stick with, and I love Drew, our sales director, but if he could make it through it, and he did last year, anyone can do it, because that's not his interest. He's a sales guy through and through, and he stuck it out. So love you, Drew. I don't know if you listen or not, but.
Well, maybe he will now. All right. So I've got 3 news things that we'll hit real quick, and then we'll close up for the day. The first one comes from Fox News, and it was really interesting. The title is U.S. Strategic Command Twitter account accessed by child. So this is kind of weird because these are the same people. This is U.S. Stratcom. So this is Strategic Command that maintains our nuclear, arsenal. They're the ones who keep the codes and all that stuff. Well, last week, actually, it was only just 2 days ago, there was a tweet that came out, and it was ;L, GMLXZSSAW. And that was it. Right. So you can imagine that caused quite a stir. People are like, what the hell? This is a place where you're normally getting, legit tweets lots of kind of led to a bunch of jokes and things. Well, it turns out that the guy, I think it's a guy who maintains the Twitter account for, U.S. Strategic Command, was working at home and walked away from his computer, and his kid came behind him and sent a tweet.
What? Yeah, I was just reading the actual response to the Freedom of Information Act, but I can only hope that the computer used for Twitter is not connected in any way to the confidential, top secret, like beyond top secret stuff that goes on in Stratcom.
Right. Well, and yeah, I mean, I agree with that completely. And I'm also like, I expect better.
I would hope that, well, the other thing would be kind of, you would think that guy got some sort of a written warning or something.
Right. Well, and it just shows how important it is. Like, take this to home, to my work life, right? Do I walk away from my computer in my home office without locking it?
I lock it when there's nobody else here.
Right.
It's just Windows key L it just is an ingrained habit. If I stand up and walk away from my desk for anything further than where I can see the computer, that's kind of my rule. If I'm going to the fridge, I can actually see it at the office. I can know nobody came in. But if I can't see it, it's locked.
Right. Well, and you'd think with government, especially, something, even if it's just Twitter. See, some people will be like, oh, this is cute. Haha, it's Twitter. This is information dissemination. So this can, thank God it was a kid, because in the hands of somebody more nefarious, you can do some real damage by spreading false information, using this Twitter account, because people come to trust, like, oh, it's U.S. Central Command. I can trust tweets that come from here.
Mm-hmm.
Can you?
Yeah.
If they're not following good security best practices, i.e., in this case, locking your workstation when it's unattended. So hopefully they take this as like okay, we can do much better here. I understand that. Thank God this was, a child doing just this, but
Right.
yeah. So, and kids be kids, man. I mean, what do you expect?
Oh, that is the reason that if I can't see my computer, it's off.
Right? Yeah, you never know what those kids are going to be
I
up
mean,
to.
I think my kids are probably more aware than most because we do talk through this stuff. But yeah, I don't. It doesn't matter.
No. All right, 2 other news articles, and we'll get through these quick, and then we'll head out. So this one is from securityaffairs.co. The title is Hackers Breached the PHP's Git server and inserted a backdoor in the source code. Thank God they found it. It's bad.
I mean, I think this is the exact, basically what we just saw with SolarWinds. It's I mean, not the exact same thing, but the concept, right? They get in and push it to this trusted source. People, I mean, how many people use
PHP?
PHPs? I mean, like,
Yeah. PHP's all over the damn place. And this was recent too, right? This was on March 28th.
yeah.
So 2 days ago, that's when the attackers pushed 2 commits to PHP-SRC, which is the repository. Yeah. And how does it say how they were alerted?
No, but
Who found?
what's crazy is the accounts they used: Rasmus Leerdorf, PHP's author, and then JetBrains developer Nikita Popov. I mean, these are not exactly low profile accounts that were used.
Right. So it looks like the attackers compromised the accounts and then used that.
It's so it says we don't know how it happened. Everything points to a compromise of the git.php.net server rather than a compromise of an individual account.
Okay. And that's here. It says in the future, in order to access the repositories, users will now need to be part of the PHP organization on GitHub, and their account will have M2FA or two-factor authentication enabled. Does that imply that you didn't have to have multi-factor authentication enabled
Oh,
to access the
absolutely.
repository before? It's like, oh my God, people.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, anyway, thank God they found it. Hopefully they'll restore our confidence in the PHP source code. Man, source code security, please, people, come on. You can do much better.
Especially now. I think the last with Orion and the Exchange, you're starting to see some changes. So hopefully people.
It's going to get worse. It's going to get worse before it gets better, sadly. All right, the last one I've got is from the Register, and the title is Intel accused of wiretapping because it uses analytics to track keystrokes, mouse movements on its website. It's like, okay. I mean, Intel's not even close to being the only company that does that.
Isn't that like what every big website does?
Right. Well, yeah, it's marketing, right? And they track where you go on the website, because if there's certain parts of your web, you want to put your content in the places where people are going and, steer people in the right direction. It's pretty important intelligence. And I really don't. So this is based on a lawsuit. So a lawsuit was filed against the chip maker, against Intel.
Mm-hmm.
It's in a Florida state court. The plaintiff is a person named Holly Launders, Londers, and she's, complaining about this thing. The only problem I really sort of see with it, because if you come to my house, I have, my virtual house, my website. I should be able to track where you're going on my website. I should be able to know where you're clicking. I don't see really a problem with that. I think maybe the problem is you need to tell people that you're doing it.
Yeah, and reading through it, if you look at the 7 most it says in here, the 7 most popular session replay services are unused on 482 of the Alexa top 50,000 websites. So you know that this is happening. I think where the concern comes in for me is if you're putting in social security information, credit card information, what are those? Are they capturing that information? Because that's now an issue. If they're not capturing that, I mean, it is what it is. It's not surprising.
It'll be interesting to see what comes from the lawsuit. If I don't think she'll win, but if she does, it's going to set a precedent.
Yeah, here's the list of companies that have been sued over this: Banana Republic, Blizzard, CVS, Fandango, Foot Locker, Frontier Airlines, General Motors, Home Depot, Old Navy, Nike, Norton, Ray-Ban, T-Mobile, and WebMD, among others. Like, as long as they're not, like I said, as long as they're not capturing that sensitive information, I kind of feel like it's expected.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And the claim is this is a wiretapping privacy claim, and I don't think that she'll win, but because, like you said, it's common practice, and I have the same concerns you do. As long as there's not sensitive, or I guess highly sensitive information that's being captured or exposed in the tracking. If you come to a website, expect to be tracked. That's just how it works. What I don't like is when you track where I came from. I don't like when you track where I'm going. So things outside of your domain, outside of your website, I don't feel as comfortable with you tracking. So that's why cookies, blocking scripts, all those things are good practices. But at least you have control over that. You can't really do that when you go to, well, you can, but most people won't, when you go to these other sites.
Yeah, no, there's some good plugins too for blocking that stuff if you're really interested.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, that's it for the show, man. What else do I have? That's it. Shout outs? You got any shout outs?
Yeah, I'll give a shout out to my wife for taking care of the medical emergency with our son Friday. She did a phenomenal job. You can tell she's a nurse. She had her medical nursing approach kicked in, and nice. It was fantastic to have that, because I didn't do so well.
Yeah, well, good, man. Well, that's what makes a really good partner. Well, since you gave a shout out to your wife, I'll give one to my wife too for letting me buy all my Harley parts that I keep buying. Yeah. She hasn't lost patience with me yet. She's like, "What did you get now?" I'm like, "This thing, don't worry about it. It's good." But she's yeah. I mean, it's amazing how, I mean, I don't think I'd get through life without my partner, my wife.
Oh, yeah, no.
So
I think cool. You and I both would have worked ourselves silly and would be in a padded cell at this point.
Yep. I tell people all the time I'd be dead or in jail. And they're like, "Oh, no, you wouldn't." I'm like, "You just don't know me, man. Seriously." Right. Well, thank you to all our listeners. Send things to us by email at unsecurity@protonmail.com. If you like doing the social thing, the social media thing, I have a social media account. It's at Evan Francine. That's my Twitter account. Brad's is at Brad Nye. Other Twitter accounts that you might be interested in is Unsecurity. This podcast is at UnsecurityP. Security Studios at Studio Security, and FRSecure is at FRSecure. And that's all we got for this week. Talk to you next week. Have a good one.